Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the channel. I am doing the second part of the getting started with cursor video. Today, we basically had the last video around minute 9 freeze. And so while you all enjoyed my lovely voice, there was no visuals. And so what we're going to do is quickly recap some of that and then do some actual coding. So basically, and while I do that, I'm going to pull up. We'll touch base briefly on things I covered, and then we'll get back into kind of getting started with cursor. The other thing that I got some feedback on is people just wanting a more universal website where they can do some of the practice, so I'm going to use Wikipedia today. To start, install Playwright. We're going to do end-to-end. I can do getting started with a unit test, getting started with a component test, getting started with contract tests, like all the other ones, but today, just for the getting started series, let's call it, I'm going to do end-to-end tests. We're going to install Playwright. If you didn't see the other video, I tried to cover like cursor, why I like cursor, the different tools in cursor. Go ahead and watch the other video. I guess it's a trade-off, right? If you've seen the other video, I don't want to make you sit through re-explaining it. If you've not seen the other video, go watch the other video for the first like 10 minutes, and I talk about like cursor, how I use cursor, rules, stuff like that. All right. So we did a fresh install of Playwright. Today we are going to do end-to-end testing of Wikipedia. So what we will start by doing is doing our page object model as one does. So we are going to simply copy the outer HTML. We're going to go here. We're going to say make a new POM folder. Now, and then we'll say make POM for Wiki homepage. So it's going to make a page object model folder for the Wiki homepage. The Wiki homepage POM. For the record, a page model doesn't really make sense for a public web page like this, because really it's like the pages themselves are not really the unique component. What I'd probably end up doing if I was like truly testing Wikipedia is I'd find the patterns that all the pages have, and I would instead have a pattern-based model or architecture. And so like the individual pages, I would imagine, follow patterns. But for the sake of this, we're just going to do something that's easy to follow, which is a page object model. So one of the first things to notice, by the way, and I covered this last time, LLMs want to make you happy. I did not give a ton of scope to what I wanted other than making the file. It's going to assume we say that I want to use a page object model to write tests. It's going to write a bunch of tests that are not really that great. Probably what I should have done in the prompt was give it a little bit more specific, so what I want and what I don't want. What we've done when it comes to like our production projects is we actually have readmes that we put in that are pretty extensive, and anytime that we're doing one of these repeated tasks, make a page object model, do some of these other things, we have readmes that we just paste in. They're all in Notion. I'm transparently debating whether or not I'm going to share those readmes, mostly because someone made the point, which is, hey, you do need something that continues to make LoopQA unique. So it feels like those readmes might be something that we keep, but I'll maybe post a version of it. I haven't decided. All right, we can have the test. Should navigate, should load. Once again, are these really that useful of tests? Probably not. But for the sake of this, let's just go ahead and run it and see how it does. We don't want to, we're going to comment out actually all the other projects. Delete. Let's run it again. 5 failed. Perform a search. I'm going to imagine that Wikipedia does not have bugs. So in this case, on a different screen, I'm looking at a bug that basically says, pull it up, definitely. All right, so we have 5 failures, should perform search. I know for a fact this is not a bug, so we can just go in and say, these are bad tests. And then what we'll do is we'll point it at the terminal. So basically, it's going to look at the terminal, it's going to see our prompt, these are bad tests, and it should fix the tests. Unless, of course, I guess we just discovered bugs in Wikipedia, but I'm going to assume we didn't. What's interesting, though, about this is the idea that it probably did do a search. So let's go find the search. Take back that I'm telling it to not do this stuff. So we're going to stop this. We'll just say hi. The benefit, right, of cursor is that even though it changed code, by us resetting it, it just basically reset the code and change, which is really nice. All right. So should display article count. Dislike ES extensions, but they are useful at times. Which one? Top 10 should proper accessibility should display languages. Search. Expect. So what is it searching? Here's what specific language. Ah. Oh, funny. French. I cannot read French for the record. Okay, so what we're basically doing is I'm giving it more context, and I'm going to tell it, for example, is here is the Marie Curie page from Wiki for tests. Oh, actually, so it thinks it really just is looking for a redirect, and then so that's probably a bad test. So, I don't think that's necessary. Let's go ahead and stop this. We have some tests, and then let's just, for the sake of this, let's say by to just critical and to, and just to make this whole video clear. Alberta and stuff. We are still in the French Wikipedia. Alberta and stuff. Not French. So the other thing to recognize about cursor is you don't need to give it context really if you are pasting in code. So like I'm saying just verified, I'm not telling it which test case because I copy and pasted the test case in, and so it knows what I'm trying to do, and now it's already fixed it, which is just this. But I'm gonna guess that's how it should go. Now we rerun that. And it gave me the right Wikipedia. Cool. So in 10 minutes, we pulled the page object model, we wrote some tests, which is great when it comes to how easy this stuff is. Now, let's keep going. Let's not be on the French. One second. Read French. My keyboard. Okay. Let's now test a page that we can be a little bit more consistent on. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and we will grab this page. All right. We'll say now add a POM for the login page. I think I've mentioned this before, but like the thing to think about when it comes to using something like cursor is essentially it's just a faster keyboard than you could ever possibly type. You need to still take responsibility for the code, but it's just going to basically rip through, as you can see, typing faster than human possibly can type. While we're waiting, let's go look. Once again, we could stop it at this point because it's probably going to make way too many tests. That's a component test that should not be here. Should fill and clear. I don't think that's a hugely valuable test, to be completely honest with you. Cursor released a new queuing system, which I find interesting because you have to stop the previous thing in order for it to go, or alternatively, it just queues. Limit the number of tests, which is great. Foreshadowing the rest of the video, so we're going to do some of the like playing around with adding the login test, playing around with where you can put data and stuff like that. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is we're going to add some API stuff. So if you just search like Michigan, for example, Michigan, why is it not letting me search Michigan? Cool. We can actually get this information through an API call, and then like we're going to just play around with showing like how you can just basically cursor to also very quickly API calls. While we're waiting though, it's done, should load, should fill and submit, test user, great. Now, never really great practices to put creds directly into tests, so let's go ahead and tell it to make a new folder called data. And let's say move the creds to data, and then we will give it also this context. Great. And you can see it's moved all your hard-coded data from the test into your node data folder with all your creds, which is great. Now, realistically, you could arguably put these in like an env file, but we'll do that some other time. And if we run these tests, the login one will definitely fail because actually won't fail. And this goes back to one of the dangers of AI. Yeah. It didn't fail, even though it should fail, because it wrote a bad test. It's basically saying click login is the end of an end-to-end test, which is a horrific thing that it's doing. Like, this goes back to, this is going so much humanly faster than I could ever possibly go. It still is going to absolutely make mistakes. This is a very bad test. You think it worked, it did not work. Your entire login process is broken because it thinks it clicked the button. I guess for context, there's nothing asserting that you're actually logged in. There's no proof that you're in a logged in state. Cool. Okay, so you have those tests. Now, let's go ahead and have a little bit more fun. Let's grab network calls. So let's go to mission response. That's not API. I thought there was this from. Basically, I'm importing this into Postman to do a quick test for myself to see what it does. Cool. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to then say, make a new folder for managing BIN points for this. Copy the full curl. It's going to do that. I'll be curious whether or not it realizes that we should use Playwrights like request. What is it? Request. Actually, let's go ahead and do this. We'll say make sure. So we're gonna goals to debug, which all looks fine. Let's adding an endpoints. Arguably, it's going to overkill because it's trying to add a bunch, which I'm gonna imagine won't work because it's gonna make them up. So this goes back to you could probably tell it to be a lot stricter. Also confirm that it's still working. It is. In terms of parsing some of the responses. Wrapping up, so it's added some endpoints. So search by title, search by content, get article summary. I have no idea if these work or not. In theory, they do. API, which doesn't seem to publish their API. So don't know if this is going to work. Then it wrote tests based on that. We should see these tests. Yep. Oh. Half failed, passed. Dodges realistically better than I. Once again, we're going to assume that there's no bugs. So let's just go ahead and tell it to look at the results. Bad test, fix. So you might be asking yourself, like, why is this so cool? And also, I feel like I have low energy today, so apologies about that. The reason this is so cool is simply time savings. Like, none of this is revolutionary. None of this is even particularly hard or complex, but the act of literally writing this code, typing it out would have taken me like a half day. Not, maybe it's a stretch, but like I can do it in this video in 19 minutes, right? So arguably that is the value here, right? Is none of this is revolutionary automation. None of this is particularly hard automation. Ripping an API call is tedious. Trying to get the JSON object right, tedious. Trying to do all this different stuff, tedious, right? And so there is value in just simply thinking about this as a keyboard that will just be so much faster than you can possibly expect. So we'll probably stop the video there. If you have other video ideas, I'm going to try to get a lot more complex with some of the topics. We're going to talk about data seeding, the thermal environments, everything under the sun in which cursor and AI can be helpful when it comes to test automation. Once again, this is part 2, though, of that sort of getting started with AI and automation. Would love feedback. And if you don't want to have to teach yourself all this, or you're on a team and you want embedded engineers to come help out and kickstart your team, look at workwithloop.com. That is workwithloop.com, and we will check it out. Talk soon.